Hi, I'm Michelle Shea Walker, and you're listening to Modern Day Magic Makers, a podcast dedicated to rebranding magic from the mystical fantasy world of your childhood to a more modern incarnation, where spells and rituals take on many forms, and magic makers include people of all walks of life, just looking to shift the energy in the world. Tune in for inspiring interviews, recommended rituals, and magic-making mentors of past, present, and fiction. Stay tuned for some modern-day magic. My guest for today's podcast is Nicolette Venia. She's a talented intuitive and spiritual advisor who specializes in helping her clients awaken their full potential. She has been my personal clairvoyant connection for several months, so I speak from experience when I say that she brings the most inspirational advice from the ethereal realms. We sat down to talk about her own spiritual journey and advice to those who wish to find a deeper connection to what she lovingly refers to as the spirit posse. I met Nicolette through teaching yoga, and she ended up signing up to do a Reiki session. And during her Reiki session, we had a lovely conversation afterwards about these very spiritual concepts. And I thought that it was such a great balance to have two young modern girls sitting around talking about these very out there concepts in a way like we were talking about the latest episode of a new television show.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's why I've asked her on today, so that we can kind of approach these concepts from a very conversational format.
Yes.
So before we dive into sort of the bulk of the topics, you want to tell us about your experience? Because I know that you refer to your spirit guides as your posse.
Yes.
You have a very good communication with the spirits around you. So how did you sort of tap into this originally?
I mean, there's a long and there's a short of it, but basically, when I was littler, when I was, in grade school and things like that, I could always tell that I was able to kind of tell what was going to happen before it was happening, whether I was going to be called on in class or I would just know things, and I always thought it was kind of cool, and it was like this little secret I had, and I felt a little different, and I never told anyone. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, it was, it was always a part of me that I felt like I just knew things, and I didn't know where this information was coming from. So it actually, when I was 17, I remember distinctly being in my poetry class, and we were reading a poem called You Reading This Now, Be Ready. And I forgot who the poem is by, but it kind of all at once, I felt like someone just turned a receptor on or something. And all of a sudden I was like, feeling, seeing, and sensing in a different way. And there's definitely a lot more to the story, but basically at 17, I would say I was kind of experiencing things in a totally heightened way now. And it was crazy because there's no one you can talk about. I didn't know what was really happening, but I did know that there was more out there than meets the eye, is kind of what begun my journey into figuring out what is going on in the world, okay?
Can you explain sort of heightened way, what were kind of the symptoms of that shift?
So it was, before the phone would ring, and people have these senses all the time, but it was in a different way. Before the phone would ring, I would go to grab it, I knew who was going to be calling, and I'd pick it up. Or, it was kind of on the verge of, and this is where it's going to get a little out there with the language, but having attachments or ghosts, things that are not of higher light and love that shouldn't be around, kind of playing games a little bit. Ended up getting so bad, and I was so not myself, and just kind of having out-of-body experiences. My friends thought, hey, they were pulling me aside, hey, did you take something? Just let us know. I was being that bizarre.
Yeah.
My parents noticed, everyone noticed, they pulled me out of school, and my mom took me to this woman, this spiritual woman. I'd never heard anything about it. I was, raised Catholic, didn't really follow religion, didn't want to go. So it was very bizarre to be brought to this spiritual woman. I'm like, what do you mean spirit? I'd never even heard that concept. So, she sat me down at this table, and I'm beyond even being near who I am. You know, I'm just totally out there. So she sat me down and did what is now known as like a clearing, or as some people might, the religious term would be like an exorcist, you know, like clearing.
Which sounds much less pleasant.
Right, exactly. And it wasn't unpleasant. I just kind of sat there, and she held space and did whatever she did, and I was like, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. But turns out I went home, and within a couple days I was journaling, and it seemed like I was totally back to normal. But, you know, as everyone's really happy, my friends, my family, everyone's like, yeah, Nicolette's back, and we don't have to take her to like a mental hospital or anything. I sat there and was like, what was that though? You know, like what was going on? So
we have a cat joining the podcast, guys. So if you hear a tail on the mic or a meow, that's what's happening. Continue.
So I that's when the journey really begun, and that was really the short of the story. There was, you know, I would walk in the bathroom and the water would be running before I washed my hands. I mean, it was things that shouldn't be happening were happening. So that's when I knew I went from, you know, being this normal 17-year-old, like, you know, hanging out at the park with my friends and, you know, up to no good, suddenly being like, there's something else here. What is going on? So I started finding mentors and doing everything I could, taking classes, reading, and learning how to hone my own craft, because I knew I had something, I just didn't know how to manage it. Yeah. Which I think some people might deal with, and it's kind of scary because you're getting all of these things coming at you at once, and at times I was like just let it stop. You know, how do I turn this off? Because it was overwhelming, really. Yeah. So I guess that's what we can segue into is if you're getting signals, or if you want to recognize signals. Yeah. Because we live in this world where you're either, you can be flooded with them if you want to be, or you could be dimly aware of them. And sometimes we might think that everything's a coincidence. But if it's one thing I've learned, it's definitely not a coincidence. And that signal or message that you don't think was for you is intended most often times to be for you.
Yeah. And I think you said something really valuable at the beginning that I did want to touch on, is that like you said, we all have this to a certain extent. Right. It's just a matter of how we choose to tap into it and bring in awareness to how we best tap into it. Like there are the clairs. I actually plan on doing either a video or a podcast about just the clairs. But the clairs, for those of you listening that aren't familiar, you can be clairvoyant, which is what most people think of when we think of psychics, people that see the future. It's a visual thing. You can be clairaudient. You can hear things. You can be clairsentient, which is what I do through my Reiki healing. I feel things in my body that tell me certain messages. Or you can be claircognizant, when thoughts kind of just come to you. And I feel like that's probably the most common one, and we just don't realize it. We're like, oh, that's weird. Why am I thinking about this? And it's about training yourself to recognize when it's the message. And
follow the instinct. And, you know, the big one is trusting yourself, not thinking you're crazy. Like,
absolutely.
You know, you don't have to go tell everyone you know about it, because...
Yeah, selective audience.
Right. Is good. Yeah, exactly. Someone who understands what you might be talking about.
Yeah. Everyone else can just think that you're very smart. It's fine.
But it's kind of learning the balance in everyday life, but also, how can I utilize this for my highest and greatest good? How can I move forward with this information I'm getting? Because it's obviously here for a reason. Yeah. So, you know, from your everyday Joe, how do you follow it? And everyone can do it. That's the awesome thing about it.
Yeah. So what do you suggest as far as like trying to tap into this?
I think down to the basic level is, if you, because you might be thinking, well, where is this coming from, or is this good or not? If something is for you, the message will feel that it has an impact. It'll resonate with you. It'll feel good in your body. If something is, you know, suddenly you're getting messages or feelings that you're anxious or you're angry out of the blue, where you could be sitting on the train or out in public and you think, wow, these thoughts are not my own and they have no impact, that's when you know those aren't for you, and you can just simply say, you know, in your head, or, you know, whispered or out loud, however you feel, but you can just say, please return to sender with divine consciousness. because those thoughts are not of your own. So until you kind of learn how to hone to turn off what you don't want to come in, you can just control that and recognize when that thought isn't for you or for your highest and greatest good.
And sometimes that's a matter of, that's energy awareness, whether it be from the spiritual realm or for other people. Like, there have been plenty of times that you can be in a public space and pick up on other people's bad vibes.
Yeah. I'm sure anyone can kind of relate to this. It's like you're in a space and there's a lot of people or something, and suddenly you don't feel like yourself. Yeah. And you want to get out of there. And that's energy. You're picking up on it. And maybe you do need to get out, and just kind of take a moment to breathe. So.
And kind of recalibrate, come back to your center.
Yes, and understand. It's really important to understand what your energy is. So the more you become comfortable in that, you know exactly when it's not yours.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. So I know, to just sort of interject for myself, like, a lot of what becoming comfortable with my own energy was being aware of what I feel like when I'm still.
Right.
So that's why so many times people recommend like meditation and yoga and practices like that and that's why you hear a lot of this conversation in like a yogic sort of like hippie new agey community, because it's part of that lifestyle to sort of find that stillness, and you're finding that natural state, and then you can recognize when something doesn't quite feel like it's coming from you.
Yes. And for me, I always thought, meditation, like, I would hear all these different ways, you sit in the dark, or you sit in front of a wall, or there's just so many different things, and it's overwhelming at times. So I would say, if you're just starting off and you want to, just dive into what is comfortable in your body, what you the essence of you is, there's a couple of things you can do when you're just sitting in silence, and just close your eyes. You can imagine yourself. Sometimes if you're a visual person, it's easier to kind of connect in this sense, but imagine a staircase, any type of staircase, a wooden ladder, a big luxurious staircase, and walk up to yourself, your higher self. And you can see this form of you in a goddess or a fairy, or princess, however you envision your highest self, the core essence of your being. Go walk up that ladder and sit and chat with yourself. And it sounds like a really bizarre thing, but I tell you, you will really start to understand, stripping away from society and everything that you think that you are, and then really getting to your essence of what it means to be you in this lifetime, in this body.
It's also kind of an act of self-love, too.
Oh, absolutely. You can give yourself a hug up there. Yeah. I mean, I encourage it, yes.
Yeah, they say that a lot with, like, inner child meditations, to, like, reconnect to your inner child and give them a hug.
Yeah.
So just kind of to go off of what you mentioned about, like, higher self, I want to kind of interject, like, for those of you that this is a very new thing, if you're still listening, this is, it's a concept that I like to think of, like, the spiritual realm as what you want to open up to, what you want to make it. So, like, it's just the same thing of, like, when you go through recovery programs and they mention God, and then they say, well, it's a higher power of your own understanding.
Right.
So for you listening, if you're not comfortable thinking about the idea of tapping in with ghosts or past ancestors or anything like that, just think of it as your highest version of yourself.
Yeah, love. I mean, everyone understands love.
The loving energy within you. And then if you tap into that and you decide you want to go higher, we will, talk about the other things from there. But, like, if this starts to seem a little otherworldly to you, you can always ground it. You can always bring it back down to yourself, because ultimately your highest self is connected to all of these things that we're going to discuss anyway. So like, if you feel better just connecting to you and the best version of yourself, then think of it that way. If it excites you to think of connecting to spirits or angels or fairies, we will discuss that as well. So
yeah, because I know when I first got into it, and still I'm like a little bit like, I'm like, oh, I'm talking to the universe,
Absolutely.
But really, it's my posse, and I do recognize that they're there, and sometimes I deny them, but no, they are a funny little bunch. So
for myself, I'm very new to this practice.
Yes.
I've connected to sort of my higher self for a while, and that's sort of like recognizing my own claircognizance, and as far as, like, actually taking the time to name a guide and really connect to sort of a figure outside of just these universal messages that I'm sitting into, I'm still very new at that.
Yes.
So I'm assuming, since you call them your posse, that they all have like sort of individual characteristics, or...
Well, I actually keep it pretty broad for myself.
Okay.
Because...
And that's a choice that you can make.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. I know people who, call them by name. I know people who just call them their group. And how I do it is I kind of divide, I visualize and divide them. So I do my guides to my left, angels to my right,
okay,
ascended masters up top, and fairies at the feet.
Okay.
And I know it sounds really crazy, but it kind of helps me kind of decipher when things are coming in. And it also helps just kind of organize the field, also grounding yourself that way.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. But the guides they have been in human form before.
Okay.
Sometimes you were born into this life with them, and sometimes guides can come and go and shift out. As you progress and learn lessons, maybe that guide isn't going to serve you any longer, and someone else will come in, and those shifts just happen kind of on their own. So. Okay,
so what is the connection of the guide usually? Like, is there some sort of personal connection that this being has to your journey?
So, yes. Typically, but not all the time. It could be, your best friend from your previous life is now here to guide you on this journey. And as much as they are assisting you, you are assisting them to move on in their consciousness. So, even though your angels are here and you might think, well, that's a different kind of energy, they are learning from you as much as you're learning from them. Okay. When you're listening to them or not, they are on that journey, they're on that ride, and, they're going to take that path with you, whether you listen to them or not. So, yeah. And all these beings are purely of love. And light, which is really important to understand. Yeah. That they're not going to tell you to go do something bad. They're here to...
And that's how you distinguish.
Yes, because sometimes people who, are maybe talking to their uncle or whatever they may be doing that's even beyond my realm of understanding, because I don't go down that path. But your uncle, your dead uncle, might not tell you to, go rob someone. Yeah. And that's an extreme, but that's probably not your uncle. Yeah. As much as you may want to believe.
So how does it show up for you we talked about the clairaudience, claircognizance. So for you, how does this show up? Or how did it start showing up? How is it transformed?
The biggest thing I can say, and how it's probably already showing up for people who are listening, who might not be acknowledging that is what it is you might ask yourself out loud or in your head, should I be making this move or should I be taking this job? And suddenly you look up and you see a sign that says, yes, I want Wendy's today, or whatever it may be. And you look at the yes and you're like, oh, that's weird. That is those things that we don't always acknowledge. And those signs will keep coming up, and it's, if you are paying attention and being mindful and seeing that, yes, that is for you, that you take, what is coming to you, I guess you could say. Yeah.
And that's also very broken down into digestible tidbits and like the law of attraction. Like, yes. You're attracting the answers to you, and
Right. So, for me, that's kind of how once I kind of got back and settled into what normal life for me was after that point was, I'd ask a question out loud, and I was just kind of dabbling and playing around, and I would ask questions in the car, and then I'd turn the radio up, and whatever song was playing was usually like dead on to exactly what I needed to hear. And I know that happens to all of us, and we just think, oh, that's a funny coincidence, but really it's your posse, your squad, whatever you want to call them, your that are there behind you, kind of, pushing you along to pick up on these things so that you can go through your life with a grace and ease and a flow of learning your lessons, because after all, we are here in this life to learn lessons and have experiences and understand human emotion.
Yeah.
And when we're here for that and all these things that, you know, happen to us, they really just want to guide us and protect us. Mm-hmm. And that's really the beauty of it. So the guides are they offer something different than your angels because they've lived these experiences. They've been in body before. They understand money. They understand. Angels don't understand money. It's kind of funny to them. They don't understand, you know, why do you need that? You know, their understanding is different. But the guides, they know. They're like, okay, I understand how money works.
That actually reminds me of a story I had where I have a picture on my wall that's the Keep Calm and Carry On poster, and then I put plastered over it Expect Miracles instead of Carry On.
Yes.
And I've had that up for years, and about a year ago, or probably like 6 months ago, I was contemplating some big shifts in my life. Mm-hmm. And I was like literally up at like 4 a.m. like on my cell phone, like trying to do some research on this like thing that I thought was supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And that picture frame fell off my wall and the glass shattered everywhere. And I was just like, at one side, I felt very comforted by the message, but also very scared by the abruptness of the transition. And so I had a Reiki client who's also very in tune. And so she kind of tuned in to the energy in the room. And her message to me from them was, we're sorry, we're not of your physical realm. We forget that things like glass shatter. Mm-hmm. Like
they just don't understand. Yeah. And it's kind of silly at times. But so you have your angels, and then you have a guardian angel. Okay. Which I know, for people listening, it may sound religious because, you know, religion has guardian angels. But your guardian angel is here, and he's kind of a different presence than your other angels. He's really... I keep saying he. It could be a she. It could be a she. They're a little bit more stoic. You know, they really about protection, guarding you. I can say like an example that I always get from my guardian angel is I'm about to cross the street without looking, and then something makes me look up from my phone. You know, I'm about to be sideswiped by a car. That's them.
The basic fundamentals of your protection.
Right, exactly. That's them being like, hey, we
need to keep you alive.
Right, exactly. Literally tapping me on the shoulder, being like, hey, pay attention. You know, get off your phone, you silly human. So, now, a lot of times with the thought of the religious aspect is that, and I'll use the uncle reference again, is, you know, Uncle Ed died and he's my guardian angel. Yeah. That's, I'm sorry, but that, he's your guide.
He's a guide.
Yes, he took off his suit form and he's in his own pure essence of Uncle Ed, and but he is not your guardian angel. Your guardian angel is someone who has come into this life to protect you and generally stays with you from birth until like your entire life. Okay. So they usually don't switch out. Okay. Sometimes they could. I don't want to say that they never do, but generally they're with you from beginning to end. Okay.
And how does that differ from the other angels?
Your other angels they can do a lot of different things. I guess you can ask them really for anything because they really just want to give you what you want as long as it's good, right? Okay.
Yeah, no, I like that.
But
so those are kind of like the manifestation powers there.
Exactly. Okay. That's the perfect word for it. Things as simple as, and, you know, people who are like, well, you know, I don't know how to utilize them or what it may be, going to the store and you're thinking in your head, there's going to be so many cars there, I'm not going to get a parking spot. They're going to kind of let that happen for you. They're going to be like, is that what she wants? Okay. You know, if you put out into, I always say the universe, but if you put out there for them,
absolutely,
I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to get a parking spot right up front. I'm going to get the best parking spot there is. Okay, then that's going to show up for you. And the more energy you put behind it, the more you say it out loud or maybe call upon them, those things will show up for you. And the best thing that the only thing you should be doing when those things do show up is having immense gratitude, because the more thankful you are, the more energy that puts behind them being able to things will show up quicker. Things will begin to show up quicker for you because you're putting that energy behind it, and they are assisting as much as you are being thankful. So does that make sense?
I love this conversation because it backs up what I always say is that it's all, everything in the New Age world is all a matter of semantics. It's just a matter of what you decide to call something. So everything that you just said is something that I teach in my manifestation classes, but then it's the universe, like you said.
Right,
and so it's like, if you decide that you respond well to calling to the universe, but to me, this conversation is really exciting because I like the idea of like, being like, hey, angels, like that feels so much closer than the universe.
And they're there and they're so excited when you, like, I literally can sense them just like, just even being here, they're like, oh my God, she's talking about us. Like, finally, she's acknowledging us, you know? And if you do, once you kind of form these relationships and you talk more out loud to them, you will see the sense of humor that all of them have.
Yes.
Because they're here all the time, you know, they're hanging out, and they really aren't funny. Especially the angels, because they don't understand a lot of times, like, why is this human walking in circles? Like, why does this human keep putting themselves in the same situation? We're trying to help her out, and she's just not taking the lead. You know, they're not taking the bait. And it's just funny because they don't understand, but at the same time, they just love you so unconditionally that they want you to get out of that, break that cycle. So they're going to keep throwing signs at you. They'll come in different ways each time. But another thing you can do is ask for signs to show up for you from them. So I know we were talking about like signals and things like that, but something as simple as, say, you know, I want to know if this, we'll go back to the job. I want to know if this job is right for me, or whatever you may be asking. And you say, I want feathers. I want a feather to show up. Okay. Sometimes people always go to that one. And you need to my advice here is broaden your perception of the feather, because if there's a bird sitting on your car every morning and you're saying, feather. Why is, you know, when is this bird doing? Right, there's a ton of feathers, but you might be only thinking a single white feather, however it might be. You know, maybe you're changing your sheets and duvet feathers are coming out. You know, there's your feathers. So just open your perception of the sign, because a lot of times, you know, being as we are, and we're like, no, that wasn't a good enough sign. I need a better sign. But just trust and accept, you know, what is showing up for you.
And really, a lot of that comes from the practice of being present as well. Because if you're not being present, if you're tripping over what your decision should be, you're not going to see the feathers.
Oftentimes, everything will come to you when you're still in your silence. Not being resistant. So.
I actually have a story. I have a YouTube video that I did about because my sign is usually bunnies. Like, when I want a yes from the universe, I say, show me a bunny.
That is awesome.
And I had one particular day that I was really wanting a yes to this particular answer. And so I was just like stressing out like that I wasn't seeing bunnies. And then I finally sat down for stillness, and I was in a coffee shop, and I was reading a book that was actually on manifesting and the law of attraction. And there was nothing in this book that should have had this word in there. But at some point she was talking about, she used the reference of like, you're going to want to celebrate as if you're at a party and everyone decides to do the bunny hop. Like, oh my God. So bunny showed up in word form for me.
Exactly. So sometimes when you're so stuck on, you know, looking for a white bunny, it is in different forms. Exactly. You have to broaden your perception. And that is the mindfulness. They do teach you being mindful, because that's how you're going to be able to tap into yourself and listen. So
guys, it's not just a homework assignment for you to sit down and be still because that's what you think that you should do to de-stress. It's actually this really magical thing that can help you find all these answers.
Yes, exactly. I always find, I'm an artist, so, you know, creative blocks happen all the time. And I'm sure this is, you know, anyone in any of their crafts.
Yes.
But when I'm like, oh my gosh, I need answers, I have deadlines, I need this, and it's like I'm so worked up. I find that when I just sit down for even 5 minutes, just close my eyes, it's like, boom, there it is. You know, you just have to be quiet, and you can, immense things will come from that, immense power. So definitely try it.
I love that. So we've talked about the guides, we've talked about the angels.
Yes.
So Ascended Masters, is that the next?
Ascended Masters. So, these I never really I never really call upon them. When I call upon my people, I just I'm literally just talking out loud to them,
Yeah.
okay? In the morning, talking out loud. So you can address them if you want, but your ascended masters are people who, or beings, I'm sorry, that have been in body before. And they've gone through so many lifetimes and experiences that they have ascended into a different consciousness.
Okay.
They are higher beings of light now, so they aren't kind of like the same as the guides. They're a little bit further along, but they can, if they want, come back into body. So Walt Disney was actually an ascended master. And a lot of people, if you look into them, I don't know about Albert Einstein. He might have been.
Wait. I have to have you back up for this. Because I've always heard, like, Mother Teresa and Gandhi.
Yes.
Back up to Walt Disney.
Okay, so, when you think about it, you're like, some of these humans are, like, extraordinary.
Yeah.
And they really were meant to come into this life. They had all of this knowledge already from their previous lifetimes, and they came with a very distinct purpose and message. And so it's very special for them to come back in because they teach humanity certain things. Walt Disney came in and taught us magic.
Yeah.
And, whether you believe in magic in different ways or whatever it may be, his is the simple child form that you just have to love, and it's so unique and it's so special, and it's like nothing, the mankind had seen before. So he was an ascended master, and he decided to come back and share his knowledge and his wisdom. Okay. And I'll definitely have to look more into this because I know that there's a lot of them, but when you think about it, like Albert Einstein, how did he know what he knew?
Absolutely, yeah.
And he said, well, this is kind of off topic, but basically he would take his naps, quote unquote, and that's when his information would come in. Yeah. So it's like,
I think wasn't it he'd take a nap with a pencil in hand, and when the pencil hit the paper, it would wake him up, and then he would know to write.
And I've heard so many people saying, oh, I had the answer in a dream. We'll have to have another dream segment, too. I could go on and on about that. But
maybe this will be a 2-part episode.
Yes. But ascended masters, so you have them as well, and they bring just a different realm of knowledge to you that you can access as well.
Okay.
But the fairies, which I love the fairies because they're so fun. The fairies are elementals, and they are here to kind of teach us about Earth and kind of the magic that Mother Earth has. So I guess a way, because I always was like, okay, the fairies, I don't really, I didn't really understand.
I've had a lot of connection to fairies come up for me in the past several years, and I'm kind of like, my 13-year-old self's super excited about that, but I don't know how I feel about it.
So that's exactly what I was going to say, is when I know a fairy is showing up for me, it's when I get super excited in a store and I see something. I am a neutral tone wearing person. I like black. I like my browns. Yeah. And when I go to grab something pink and fuzzy and I just want to touch it because I feel like a 5-year-old, that's the fairy self coming out being like, just touch it. It's so pretty. Just touch it. That's so exciting. And then you're like, and then you put it back and you're okay. Yeah. It's like they really just want you to touch it,
Okay.
So they kind of bring back the essence of a child and whimsical. And, when you're outside and all of a sudden you want to touch a flower or like you feel compelled to like stroke a leaf or something, that's the fairy in you being like, but what does that feel like? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
So
it's like a little inner child at play.
Yes, too. Yes. And there's like other little things you can do for them to have fairies come into your garden or whatever it may be. I mean, you have your fairies with you, but they're everywhere around the earth. You can leave out chocolate. They like things that are indulgent. Like they just love sensational things like that. So,
so how do they? I mean, I guess being helpful would be tapping into your inner child. Is that their main purpose is to bring you excitement?
At least for me, that's how they show up, and having an appreciation for the earth. And like seeing the leaves on a tree as not just like, oh, okay, but like really appreciating nature. Yeah. And that's definitely what they are here to do, to make you recognize the beauty that is in nature.
Okay.
Yes. Does that make sense?
I love that. Yeah.
They're really fun. I feel like giggly when I even talk about them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a couple, like, a lot of my students will compare me to a fairy after taking my class.
Yeah, that was the first thing I ever thought.
Yeah, and then I actually have another student, again, the yoga community just brings in very normal people that have these very worldly, you know, consciousness, and so I had another student tell me that she saw fairy spirit guides around me when I gave her Reiki, so they're here.
Yes, they're here, and this is, like, totally going into a different topic, but I went to a workshop one time where I learned that about 75% of the people here are just kind of like, you know, not totally connected yet to their, I don't know how to say this.
Their higher consciousness?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then about 25% of us on Earth are totally here in it. And as time goes on, everyone's kind of coming up to this consciousness as well. But
that was a big 2012 shift.
Yes.
They say that.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. So I went to this workshop, and this was the first time I had heard of it. I just kind of went because I was bored on a Saturday. But that people on Earth, they're kind of could go into 4 categories. So they can have angel energies and be purely of angel.
Okay.
And how those, and I at first was like, wait, what? But then they're like, they show up, they're like curvy and they have really soft faces and they're here to heal and they carry a little bit more weight. And then I'm sure you can already think of maybe a person in your life that is like that. Elizabeth Taylor was angelic. Yeah. Then there's your elementals, so your fairies, which I always say my mom is a fairy, whether she wants to believe it or not. And they are earth-based being from other realms, here to serve the environment. They're mysterious, playful, warm, fun. They sometimes look like fairies, which is maybe exactly what you might be.
Keep telling me,
A little twinkle in their eye, usually. The challenges they face is that they're bad-tempered sometimes, sensation junkies, angry with humanities for what they've done to the earth, and they don't understand money.
I mean, that sounds pretty right.
So things that they need to learn to manifest, and that they need to know that thoughts become things. So if you sound like a fairy out there, then just know that.
So wait, what do the angels need to learn?
Oh, the angels. Sorry, I'll go into that one. Yeah. They are here to heal. They're here for justice and life purposes. Their challenges often deal with weight, health, and codependency problems. Problems with boundaries, and to kind of get all that they can out of being an angel, they need to exercise and have fun to kind of break out of those bad challenges that might come with it.
I got a little bit of angel in me too.
Yeah, I think,
I'm sure that
and
there's
you
probably
can
categories.
be, you can be a blend. So when I found myself in this workshop, I was kind of like, I'm like, what? You know, I couldn't even really decide.
It's kind of like astrology. Like, you've got your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising sign. Yeah. And you're kind of like a wishy-washy combination.
Right. So I'm kind of thinking that anyone who is a little bit more tapped in is probably a little bit of all of them, or some more than others. It was funny because in the class, we're going to go into the ET star people next.
Yes.
There was this girl that looked like, and I don't mean this to sound mean, but she really looked like a little bit alien, like her eyes and her facial features, and she was like, yep, I totally resonate with ET.
That's something that I feel like the first person that popped in my head, like celebrity-wise, is like Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Like, and she's even made jokes because her earlobes are connected to her face, and like her toes are like webbed or connected or something like that. And she's like, I'm just a little more evolved.
Yeah. No, my boyfriend has the same thing. Attached earlobes, webbed toes. He's got crazy eyes, and I'm like, you are an alien. Yeah. That's probably why I like you.
So what are the ETs like?
They're a little bit different. They're detached, sometimes a little bit more manipulative.
Okay.
Cool, like they have like a cool air about them. Don't get too emotionally involved with things. Calmer,
sort of a Spock-like energy.
Yes, exactly how you'd probably picture an ET. Calm demeanor, soothe, shifting level of consciousness. Don't know what that one.
What that note is.
Yeah, I don't know what that note is, but awkward looking. Oh, I'm sorry. A little bit awkward socially, and they love gadgets. They love their games. They love their gadgets. And they are here to raise consciousness and to be energy masters. That's what they're really good at. Their challenges are social conventions and bonding, like having good, solid relationships with people.
Yeah.
So things that they can do or know is doing good is good enough, and to not get too wrapped up in thinking that maybe they don't fit in or they're not good enough or they're not doing enough, but just doing good is good enough. You don't have to overdo it, per se. And then the last ones, I really like this one, is the wise ones. And the wise ones have been on Earth many, many times. And that's where kind of their wisdom comes from. So they were former life magical workers, so healers or things of that nature, master workers of energy. And this is why they are really coming back. They're coming back to teach. They are intense people, serious, commanding, lots of charisma. They remember a lot of things, which can sometimes be a bad thing. And their challenges is they are sometimes a little too connected to the past, and they have fear from it. And they tend to overteach sometimes. So they just kind of want to teach about the elements of the earth, spirituality, healing, and they just get so excited about it that sometimes they have a tendency to overteach. But that could be maybe not such a bad trait if someone needs to hear it.
I know a couple wise ones.
That's what, as I do as well. Dramatic with big haunting eyes is usually what they are. So that's a good one. They need to know to clear out old junk. And that you're here to do something big.
Okay.
So that was just like a fun workshop I went to.
I like that.
It was really interesting to think that, okay, that it started to make sense once I was like, oh, I know someone in my life who's like that. I know, oh yeah, they do kind of look like a fairy or whatever it may be. So, that was really fun.
And my opinion of all of this is anything that helps with the self-definition process that resonates with you, like, go for it. Like, I've had conversations recently with, like, astrology skeptics, and I'm like, look, if it doesn't resonate for you, then don't do it.
Exactly.
But, like, I really feel like it's super valuable for us to be able to have some sort of categorizations that that we really respond to, so we can know our patterns and so that we can know, like, the good example I just posted today on my Facebook, something about the Myers-Briggs personality test. And that's one that we all accept. And it's like, it was talking about how those personalities handle stress. And so anytime that we have these categories that you can be like, oh, that sounds like me. And then you have advice that goes along with it, whether it sounds too hippie or new agey or not, like, go with it. Like, it resonated with you for a reason.
Yeah, so, exactly. Resonating, that's a big one. So if it sounds like it's true and it feels good in your body, then it probably is. Yeah. So it is definition, being able to define yourself, because a lot of it being here, I feel like we're all saying, what's going on? And it's just taking the steps to try to figure out what that means for you. Yeah. Everyone's on their own journey, and everyone's trying to figure out their own things that make them unique and why they're here.
Absolutely. So, I love that. That's it for today's episode, Magic Makers. If you'd like to know more about Nicolette or to schedule an intuitive session with her, head over to NicoletteNoel.com. That's NicoletteNoel.com. If you would like to learn more about me, head over to MichelleShayWalker.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep making your own brand of modern day magic.